and gentlemen, this is the Just Leave Show. I'm your host, Herbie Mack, and today I'm honored to be sitting next to two amazing vets who not only did some amazing things in the past, but they're doing some amazing things in the present. And today I present TC Counter. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having us here, Herbie. And this is truly a great honor for me. I get a chance to be here next to my friend, and we're all coming together for a wonderful common cause.
Yes. I'm going to introduce Tony, but we're going to get back to what you're doing now, because what I think you're doing is amazing. And not only that, for you to introduce me to Tony Williams, how you doing, sir?
How you doing?
Good. First and foremost, thank you for doing this. And behind the scenes, we was talking about how I love what you guys do, not only in the present, but also in the past. And I'm just saying I admire the bravery. Before we get into the past, I want to talk about the organizations that you guys created. TC, would you like to start?
Yes. The organization that I created is called the Suicide Prevention Training Institute. And this was started after I retired out of the military 2015. And I came home as a veteran and just didn't want to do any more work. Flushed everything that I learned at work. And some folks would call that burnout. And you know what, I was just done. And here I am sitting on the couch watching a wonderful TV show. Can't remember what it was. But the news came on. And it described at that time, what I thought was a 13-year-old who had suicided. And so I started blaming and shaming the parents. Why didn't the teachers see this? Why didn't their pastors? And the truth of the matter is, you know what? God spoke to me and he said, you know what? Either you're a part of this problem or you're part of this solution. And I'm like, you really want me to do this? And that was my calling. That is my calling. And since then, you know what? We've hit the ground running. I've had, again, and I'm not trying to deflect, but I've had that opportunity to meet Tony and his organization, a circle of friends in their organizations. And there's a lot of other wonderful folks that are out there today that are trying to make a difference in reducing suicide among our veterans. So with that, I'd like to pass it on.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for taking on that. And thank you for acknowledging how suicide, and whether it's veterans or just in general, it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
And for you to say, you know what? Instead of me playing the blame game on others, I'm going to take my responsibility and be the help. Yeah. Thank you for that. And Tony, what about yourself?
And like TC, I spent over 24 years in the Army, both enlisted and officer. And when you come out of the military, you actually have to find a way to redefine yourself. It's different when you're in 24 years in the Army and they tell you go here, go there, where there, go that. Once you get out, you got to actually find yourself. What are you going to do when you grow up? What I did was, and I was married to a law enforcement officer in New Jersey, Plainfield.
Okay.
My hometown.
And she was involved in domestic violence. That was her department. And I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do now. I'm out of the military. What am I going to do? And so I wanted to be aligned with her. One of the things that they made important was that the only person who make decisions in domestic violence is the counselor. I said, whoa, why can't I be a counselor? And I used my GI Bill to become a counselor. And in that process, I interned at VA, first out of Troy University from Troy to intern there. And I started realizing the different culture in the VA than there is in the military. Less than 10% of the mental providers in the VA have military experience. And it shows in how they interact with us. If you don't understand this, like anything else, how can you really if you can't relate to us, how can you really handle us? And so I said, why can't veterans counsel veterans? Why? And I always say that every time I work, I said, look, how do we expect other people to take care of us if we're not going to take care of us as well? Right. So that's where I found the Veterans Council of Veterans. And that was almost 10 years ago, coming 10-year anniversary, nonprofit. And our primary mission is to prevent veteran suicide. But we do it by looking at 3 focus areas that are high risk of cause for suicide. One of them is veterans with mental health disorders. Second, if you're a military sexual assault survivor and the families. And third, the families. And so we have a program for all 3 because all 3 of them has a part to play when it comes to suicide ideations and prevention. And so that's our 3 areas, and that's what we're doing now. And we're getting bigger. Every time I look around, this is God assignment. What is the God assignment? All you got to do is acknowledge He's in charge and be obedient. And that's what we have to be. In fact, 2 days ago, I was invited from Councilwoman Honoruna Polina's Veterans Council because they wanted to focus on military sexual assault. And guess who was their first person they invited? Me. That's just God saying that's where you need to be. So that's what we do. And as the TCC, veteran suicide is a big thing. Our rates are much higher than the normal population. And then if you look at it, even if you start looking at it subculturally, you can see you can really see some specifics. Here in Florida, the age is different. So in Florida, the person that's died by suicide are generally 70 or older. So that's another thing you have to look at more to the culture. Finally, one of the things I always say about suicide is veteran suicide is a national problem, but it has a local solution. That local solution is people like TC and I who are here, who see when the veteran is doing something, or the neighbor sees someone, the veteran doing something, and then have that, and then address it. Because it's much easier if you have a relationship with that person to deal with them than somebody from a national. So that's my biggest thing. You can't nationalize the solution, you can't monopolize the solution, and you can't franchise. It has to be done through grassroots local organizations.
Yeah, no,
And I just want to jump in since this is a conversation. One of the biggest challenges that both Tony and I face is how to destigmatize that individual that says, you know what, I remember when, if I went to my first sergeant or senior leadership and said, I've got a problem, they would either tell me to suck it up and drive on, or there goes my security clearance. There's a lot of things that prevented us as veterans or active duty from coming to get the help. And we're now telling folks, you know what, it's okay to come get that help. Tony and myself, we're changing that landscape. And people like yourself that are willing to air that message and say, hey, you know what, mental health is important. Family is important. And if we don't come together and take that risk to get the help we need, we're going to be swallowed up by all those myths. I'm passionate. I know Tony's, but Tony came in from, would you say St. Pete? And that is not a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah.
When you got to talk about the traffic to get here. So, folks, that's the passion that we bring to the table today. You know what? We're going to flip the script.
Okay.
I know this is your show, but let's hear a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your story and what is your connection.
My story, being originally from the Bronx, talking about mental health or talking about anything in general outside of our house was you can't do. When I was growing up, I was always told since the age of 5 to suck it up, man up. Not allowed to, even if I have a lot of cousins that's females and I have younger sisters, I'm not allowed to play with their toys because it's feminine and I can't show that. I can't be that. And for that just really altered how I was. I'm like, man, I can't even play with my cousin. I can't even play with my sisters. I can't even do anything like that unless it's playing with my G.I. Joes or anything like that. I was told at an early age that I couldn't cry unless it was at a funeral. Unless it's something like that traumatic, that's the only time, or if birth, if somebody's born. And with that, I was just kept to myself, kept quiet, just started watching wrestling because that was okay to watch, but I couldn't watch anything that was like dramatic or anything because it was being sissy, for lack of better terms, being a sissy. And it wasn't until my cousin got murdered. And unfortunately, he got murdered at the age of 16, and I was about 11, and my mom and I was the last two to see him alive. And I had to identify his body. As you can imagine, as an 11-year-old, it puts this burden of me being the man of the house, and that really affected me. But I couldn't say anything because it wasn't acceptable. And it wasn't until the funeral when I saw him, and it didn't look like him, I went into what they say, a mental health breakdown. And I couldn't go to school for about 3 weeks, and I questioned life. I questioned everything. And after the 3 weeks, I'll never forget, one of my older cousins was like, all right, that's enough crying. You gotta man up. You gotta suck it up. And I tried to explain to them what I saw, what I had to do. And it was like, okay, that happens every day. If it's not happening to you, it's happening to someone else. Like, why are you making this a big deal? And as you fast forward, Not even about 3 years, 4 years later, I had a sister who died from brain cancer. And it was like deja vu all over again. So it was just like, I'm not gonna cry because I don't want my family saying that I'm weak, I'm a punk, I'm a sissy. And that affected me where I thought self-harm was the option. I thought suicide was the option because I couldn't express myself. I couldn't be me. Then why am I here? And there was a disconnect with my parents and I. And obviously, no parent wants to bury their child. It's like an unwritten rule. And that affected me mentally. Now, years later of healing and realizing the importance of speaking about suicide ideation and how we can prevent all of this, I'm very passionate about it. So I took my hurt, turn it into passion and turn it into, yes, it's happened to me, but I'm grateful that it did, because if it didn't, I don't think I would be the man that you see today. And I don't think I would be able to meet two amazing people like you, not even just the vets, just in general, what you guys do. You guys are superheroes. And being able to say, hey, you know what, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this dynamic. Let's talk about that. And for someone who attempted suicide multiple times and say, look, I thought suicide was the answer. Clearly God was like, no, you got way more to do. Just acknowledge what you've been through. You don't have to leave the hurt, the pain. There's someone out there that needs to hear your story. There's someone out there that you can resonate with. There's someone out there that you can speak to. And even though it seemed like something that happened overnight, obviously it didn't. It took time to heal, but to sit there and work with vets, work with kids, work with adults, work with parents that thought suicide was the answer, to see the 180 in them, and to get a phone call or get a text, get a DM and say, because of you, you saved my life.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't know. That's something that every day I look at and I'm just like overwhelmed with, like, I don't know what to say. You know, it's just, wow, like, thank you, God, for sparing me. You know, like I think that's me, as you say, being obedient and taking his message and using it. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my story.
Nice.
And I think you were saying you grew up in the Bronx, and my wife, she grew up in Brooklyn. But one of the things you mentioned about the environment, and we in the military, we have our own different type of environment and culture. And one of the differences in the military, people recognize that.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Bronx and that kind, nobody recognizes who you are. You're going through PTSD stuff too.
Yeah.
And so that makes it a big challenge. Or just use the word a lot about self-harm. There are certain things I know TC mentioned about the stigma. And the stigma also is different in different cultures. The Asian they have big time stigmatized, and they don't like going to counseling and stuff, so they suppress it. African American community, generally speaking, are the same way, where you were mentioning about suck it up.
Oh, my therapy was either I'm going to go to the barber shop or I'm going to the liquor store. That was my therapy. And that's what was acceptable.
That was their recommendation to me. You're following them, saying, what can I do? Just take a swig.
Take a swig, yeah. And that's self-harm in itself. You know?
Yeah, that's another way of self-medicating.
Yeah.
So what I know Tony was talking about the language, and once I started working with vets and I started seeing there's a different lingo, and that's when I took it upon myself to, okay, I'm not going to bring you into my world. I'm going to go into your world, and then from there we're going to navigate and to help you understand it. And I think it's always from a coach perspective, it's always meeting them where they are and not where you want them to be. So instead of me saying, oh man, you know what? I know the solution. Meet me here. I'm just going to get frustrated. We're just going to collide. But let me just go into your world, understand your lingo, understand your terms, so I can understand so I can see it. Then from there, I can navigate the way. So from that perspective, when you said, okay, God's calling me, let me get into this field, was there anything, like any patches that was difficult for you making this connection of talking about emotions and suicide when it comes to vets?
No, I come to the table with 38 years of experience. I'm a counseling psychologist by default. My true love, my true passion is hypnotherapy. I love putting folks into trance. Folks don't go into trance long enough, okay? But the truth of the matter is, I've learned the language of broken and bent. And most people, when I talk about our veterans, there's an association of that person's broken because they're experiencing PTSD, they're experiencing depression or anxiety or any litany of things that is diagnosable. Yet the truth of the matter is that, and I tell folks that I've been downrange with, I have children of a Vietnam veteran. You know what? That noise in your head, it's real. Stop denying that it's not real, because that's where that brokenness starts to become a reality. Folks, you're not broke. You may be bent. Bent means that you are fixable, whatever that means. That means rejuvenation. That means hope. That also means, oh, I'm not alone going through this process. Again, when we talk about the language, when those soldiers came back from downrange, I had the privilege and the pleasure of doing reintegration briefings. I shared my story with a few soldiers, and those that might be listening can remember this. Being downrange, you don't go any place without that sidearm. You don't go any place without your weapon. What people on the outside fail to know is that to come back from being downrange, even though I was going for a year and a half, to have somebody in the bed with me, that's uncomfortable. Taking a shower without those shower shoes on, that's uncomfortable. Going someplace, in my experience, I'm going to be the first one. When you talk about that culture shock, I went to Costco's. When I came back from deployment, Costco's was overwhelming for me. I didn't know which one of the toilet papers I needed to purchase. I didn't know. And the first thing I did out of goofiness, I reached for my ID card to hand it to the cashier when I got ready to leave, because you have to show your ID card when you go to PX. Those little things. Something as simple as, for me, again, now I'm dealing with myself. I went down to Kosovo. Kosovo, there's helicopters constantly flying at night. First 3 nights when I was there, I couldn't sleep. Why? Because there was helicopters flying at nighttime. I'm thinking there's something wrong. Believe it or not, on the 6th night, I couldn't sleep. Why? Because there was no helicopters flying. That's crazy. You can't get to sleep because you don't hear helicopters flying. And I'm going, yes, I can't sleep. No, you're the damn doctor. You're supposed to know. Hey, it shows no discrimination. And that's why I love veterans counseling veterans. We tell and remind each other, you're not by yourself through this journey.
Yeah.
You're not by yourself. Folks, all that craziness that you hear, the backfiring of a car, people didn't understand what that was like. We're thinking somebody's shooting. We were on automatic alert. Little things, believe it or not, when you talk to the community outside of the veterans, the military, they think we're nuts. But we're not. And that's the message why I'm here today. Folks, you're not nuts. You're not crazy. But I've been going through this for a number of years. Okay, join the rest of us. You may be a little bent, but you're not broken.
I love it.
Okay?
I want to segue to Tony, because I think what you said is important, and this is the reason why I'm so grateful that you're here about Veterans Counseling Veterans, because you mentioned earlier, most of the counselors, they don't experience that. When you had this epiphany to do this, because it's always like that, you know what, I should do this. And not only should I do this, I can do this. You obviously have to believe in yourself and do it. And now that you started this organization, what are the results that you've seen, speaking to veterans, because you're like the bridge, the connector? Have there been any successful stories that people came onto you or called that said, thank you for doing this?
It's funny because, like a lot of, especially when you're doing things for God, but I don't look at those thank yous, right? I'm more like task focused, or I keep moving to the next person. And people have told me, in fact, I went to this a couple years ago, I went to the American Legion, and we had an event there, and they mentioned my nonprofit, and about 10 people stood up and told me how that I impacted their life. And you don't think about how you affect people individually. Again, in the military, we're about the connectedness. If you go to war, yes, we won't die, and then but the rest are going to live. We look at it more like that than the other way. And so in fact, I just talked to somebody not long ago. He called me from Australia. Said, I'm looking for this and that, and I've got nobody's answering my phone, blah, blah. You answer my phone, I'm so glad you answered my phone. So I get that, but it's not what that keeps me stuck. Because again, a lot of times you're saving somebody for that moment.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what more concerns me. I make prevention think about suicide today.
What about tomorrow?
What about tomorrow? And there's a reason why you're having those thoughts. And I mentioned about the family, and I mentioned about you being the Bronx and stuff, where there's also that generational trauma that we don't talk about. Like, so if the VA system says, the government system says that you have a service-connected mental health disorder, it's only right that the government should also have that same act to your family. If they don't, then what they've done is created a generational trauma because of that PTSD or whatever is going on. And that's that part we're missing. As TC's talking about how he had to adjust when he went to Bosnia, Herzegovina, and
yeah, you've been to places.
And then coming back. But there's also the jump of the family. And then they don't make that jump, and they don't have the access to it. You can learn on it. All they know is dad comes home, mom comes home, and they're yelling at me, or they don't want to talk to me, or they're self-medicated. And then you're going to start looking at yourself, and you're going to say, and then you become hard because no one's telling me what's going on with you.
You're not asking the questions, what happened to you, or what's going on.
You're not asking that person, like, how are you feeling? How do you feel with somebody when that person starts yelling at you or leaves, come back 2 or 3 days later, or whatever, or sexual assault? I think that's the piece that I feel that, and I've seen, I'm telling you can tell when you get to an affirmation called Affirmation from God, when I feel like it's a damn little hope, a damn way to get busted. I'm really afraid to be the one. It's like, God, I got you. Just keep doing it. And that's why I feel that once people start, and what we don't know, because you don't hear about it, because VA is not structured like that. We create our business model from the VA business model. The VA business model is just to be the veteran, not the spouse or the family. 74.9% of veterans have a family, one way or the other. If Florida's number, and then Florida has the second largest women veteran population, and how many of those are married with families, or not even married with their families. So that's what I feel like my next, and I'm getting affirmations that we got to start providing access to the families.
And I'm jumping in on that note. So that's where we're heading for March. We want to, the Suicide Prevention Training Institute, we want to focus on the gatekeepers, which is family. We're going to intertwine those words and offer them that opportunity to come and attend the assist workshops. We know that it's prevalent. We've seen it in your field as well as my field. Those soldiers get deployed. The women, let me stand corrected. The spouses are left behind. And they're expected to pick up those pieces for that deployed soldier, okay? Or service person. Okay.
Because before we move on, you mentioned assist. For those who don't know about assist, can you please just touch on it for a little bit?
Assist is a 2-day program that teaches individuals how to hold that conversation about suicide and what to do when they're holding that conversation. We have right now what appears to be prevention. A lot of prevention training is out there, and I am not knocking it by any means. The problem is that prevention means let's do something before. But when you say to somebody, hey, how are you feeling? I'm not doing well. Well, what does that mean? The world, I just can't take it anymore. What does that mean? I'm thinking about suicide. I'm done with this. I want the pain to go away. And the Suicide Prevention Training Institute, through the assist, is teaching you how to hold that conversation with that individual and say, you know what, let's see if we can keep you safe for right now. And again, that's where, and I keep going back to Tony and his organization, they have supported us by having those military veterans show up and be a part of what's going on. Those that have been in the spouse abuse or sexual assault programs have come and attended our programs. We're opening it up with open arms to everybody and anybody. And especially, we want the community gatekeepers. Again, I'm using that term, families, friends, cousins, everybody. We want them to come and attend our program. And that's going to be in March. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I don't want to...
No, but thank you for breaking it down, just in case someone doesn't know what assist is, or if they may be curious. With the segue of that, I think it's highly important to get the knowledge to have that conversation when someone is thinking about suicide. But also, if they are a veteran and they do, say, their spouse needs support, or their family needs support, to have someone like Tony to sit down and say, okay, this is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
This is, okay, so what you're saying is maybe this might be a domestic violence situation. Or maybe this might be a situation where you need a counselor to speak to them in a way where they get it, because their family don't understand it. So having that, it's I think vital in so many ways, because even when I have conversations with some veterans, I've learned over the years to take that step back and not think of what Herbie thinks, but let me think of what this individual went through, right? Okay, I don't know, talk to me. But creating that safe space, because it's very challenging. I don't want to say difficult, but it is very challenging to have a safe space where you can say, hey, this is what I experienced, and you don't get judged. And sometimes for myself, I get tons of information from people that I'm like, oh, okay, cool, because I create a safe space. But I also find it vital to say, hey, I know the right person that can support you. Let me navigate them to you. And now that we met, I'm definitely going to use you as a resource. But talk more about the resources that your organization provides as well, just from a spouse or family perspective.
We actually have a program. It's called Veterans Family Mental Wellness Program. And we're going to have our first summit next year, because November is too soon now. November is Military Veterans Family Month. So we're going to align that with that. And with the families, we just had a seminar for VFW auxiliary. And the auxiliaries are the ones where all the families are. And you get the veteran, and then the auxiliaries are the spouses of the veterans. And we gave them 3 hours. But that 3 hour seminar, 2 hours, was just on them. So in other words, if you were talking and your spouse is right there, I'd like to say, and what are you going through? And how has the kids been handling it? And what kind of counseling are you getting? I'm talking not just to veteran, because the veteran has a lot of resources that is almost too noisy. Mm-hmm. But the family, because I'm a military brat, I grew up in the military as well as a kid, so I really understand the family needs. So basically, I had a person just call me the other day, and we provide some what's called scholarships for those who qualify, for free counseling. And when I talked to them, she says, "Is it okay for me to my mother to be involved as well?" I said, "Of course, we'll pay for it." How about my brother? Yeah, if that's your support mechanism. Yeah. Yes, because you need that support like a military. You need a squad to help you as you go through your challenges and stuff. So that's one of our programs specifically geared toward the families. And we'll have a conference, like I said, we'll have a conference next year. We have counselors. We have on our I say our staff, but I'm more a network. But in my network, I have a whole bunch of. I'm actually identifying licensed family therapists now. See, when you go to VA, they're more focused on the individual therapists. And not LMFTs, they call them LMFTs. Yeah. I want LMFTs too, because again, we want to make sure we have something for it. And we empower the families. What does that mean? You can call me. You don't need a veteran. You don't go to the veteran to get the okay. Or if you have a problem, your husband or wife is a veteran, how you doing, Tony? I'm just gonna can I get some help? Can you start with my son? It starts with you. It doesn't start with the veteran. Whereas VA, everything starts with the veteran. Yeah. It is with the veteran. So that's the thing that. And we have different, because I'm African American, I'm intentional. I make sure we have counsel that look like, that can understand us.
Yeah.
So just being a veteran itself is not enough sometimes. And from African Americans' point of view and Hispanics' point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So I got people in my network who are Hispanic, bilingual, and also African American, including TC's one of them. And that I can sort of say, you know what? It's like you were saying, you want somebody, sometimes you want to talk to somebody who kind of,
That looks
like you.
Yeah, sure.
So we got that as far as our network as well.
I love it. I always talk about the language. Like, if there's something that if I want to talk to TC, we can connect with, hey, man, I've been talking about this, I've been going through this, and you can resonate with that. With that being said, there's a segment that I like to do. It's called Beyond the Stigma. What is the most rewarding part about your work in this field?
The most rewarding part for me is having an individual, regardless whether it's military or civilian, say, hey, you know what, you saved my life. That's it in a nutshell.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Sorry.
To me, it's interesting because I look at it as God's side.
Yeah.
And God's not too good at saying good job, right? If you do a good job with God, He gives you more. And that's an affirmation for me. And as people, I'm about ready to get inducted to the Florida Hall of Fame, Veterans Hall of Fame. When I see that, it's not, it's God saying, good job, here's more.
Yeah. You can handle more.
Yeah, you can handle more. So
more.
that makes me happy. I mean, I know it's weird saying that.
No.
But I know that it's affirmation saying, yeah, Tony, we're alive.
Yeah.
That makes me happy more than anything else.
And the message really and truly is that you, Tony, have not forgotten where you came from. And that's what keeps me humble, you humble, and I know Herbie on a different level than in this room. And this is what keeps him humble. Just knowing that we are making a difference. And yes, it is God driven. I'm not going to take that away from anybody. But to hear that kudo in the back of your head, to get those goosebumps up and those chills that when somebody goes, you know what, dude, you don't know how close I was to pulling the trigger. And it was like, you know what, maybe I did. And I'm grateful that you're here to be able to say thank you.
Okay.
So,
this is, I think TC just answered it, but how do you stay motivated and inspired in your work?
veterans helping veterans. Not veterans counseling, veterans helping
That's
veterans.
not wrong too.
Yeah, but that's one team, one fight.
Yeah.
That's the motto that I live by, that I believe in. We are a team.
Same. I love that. Would you like to add?
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's one team, one fight.
Okay. How can we destigmatize, I don't know why, I can't say it right now, mental illness, and how can we make it more acceptable for people to seek help? That's the hardest part that I always get is like, I get questions a lot. I have a loved one that needs help in this mental health field, but they don't want to seek it. How can we break down that stigma?
Herbie, in all honesty, keep doing what you're doing. You've got two people here together, unselfishly giving up their time to ensure your success. And your success is getting the word out to our community. That some people are going, you know what? These brothers have stepped up to the plate. Yeah, I went there. They stepped up to the plate. And you know what? They're not talking about black and white. They're talking about true family. That's how we're doing it. We're trying to take care of one person at a time. And folks, I'm hoping that you're truly listening to this. We're not doing a rubber stamp mode. That's not who we are. We're one individual at a time going, you know, what can I do to help you get through another day?
Yeah, man. That's how I look at it, and that's how as far as what motivates me. Again, after this, I'm not just spoiled. When you're aligned with God, things magically happens. And I was talking to yesterday to one of my psychologists, and she's like, "Tony, we're not there yet. This and that." So look, if God's bringing it, it will be there when it's time. I'm just saying, I don't want to sound fanatical. I've been doing this too long. That you just don't let the human fear that prevents you from moving forward, because you got to have that faith that when that person or wherever it's going to be there. And I look at it like that. I look at it now. One thing that keeps me humble, a lot of times it's not about me, right? I know that it may be the guy like Moses, right? It may be the guy behind me. Mm-hmm. Right? This is not about, about me. It's about me getting ready for what's behind me. As a human being, I can only see as far as that stop sign. God sees everything. Sound again. I'm just saying, if I'm faithful and obedient, I'm telling you, because in our world, and he knows, if it's not about obedience, I'm not done. Let me tell you right now, there's some things that hit you, a brick wall, wherever that comes in, I'm finished. But be obedient, Tony. Be obedient. Yeah. And that excites me, that inspires me when I keep seeing these stuff happen, that I know that it keeps me inspired.
Love it. Love it. Ooh. Last question. How can we individually prioritize our mental health daily?
Say the question again, a little slower.
How can we individually prioritize our mental health daily? Just you as a person, like how? What do you know?
The question, I just needed to hear it again.
A little slower. Sorry, it's the New York side coming out.
Tony, you go first.
You had mentioned about the stigma, and earlier. First of all, we got knowledge we all have anyway. People, the same ones saying stigma, they're almost part of the problem. The same ones who are saying stop the stigma, or the same ones that. So one thing I do, I've done it the last 19 years. When we have a Memorial Day, I have it's called Special Memorial for Veterans Who Died by Suicide, died their first part by suicide, because of the stigma. Yeah. If they went to a regular Memorial Day ceremony, everybody there is somebody who died in action or like that, and they say, well, how did your husband or wife die? You don't want to say, they died by suicide. So you don't go. And I was told by one of the Gold Star mothers, when it just so happened that my date that I was having was the same date as theirs. Why you having mine? Yours the same day as ours. Even the Gold Star mothers stigmatize suicide. To destigmatize, you got to have more. Normalize, we call it normalize. Mm-hmm. You have to have more people doing it. And I like that word you use. And I've heard before, I just never hit me so hard. Using the language is lesser. So instead of saying suicide, think of another word, like self-harm. That's a lot less. Somebody saying, you ever talk about suicide? Yeah. But if you ever talk about harming yourself, well, that's a little different. Yeah. It's
an icebreaker. That's why I use it as an icebreaker.
So I think we have to spend more time looking at that word. It stops us. What was the last question? What actually I just about?
I'm so done with something.
I want to bounce that one if I got the answer. But the last question was,
how do you, for your mental health?
How do you prioritize? Yeah. I'm going to tell you when it comes to mental health, like anger management, that kind of stuff, it has to be part of your exercise regime. Human beings, we work through repetitiveness and the process. So if you want to create a habit, you got to start doing it every day. But don't try to do the whole day. Just say, I'm just going to do 1 minute. That's it. So when you know some do the meditations and stuff, I think if you start up with it being your priority, I'm going to meditate for 3 minutes, that will help. Don't wait, because a lot of times it's too late if you wait till it's convenient, right? I'll work on mental health at 4 o'clock before the football game. Yeah. But still, you know what? First thing, I want to do something that addresses mental health. I would say meditation.
I want to add to the value of what you just said. For myself, I was like, man, journaling is something that's hard to do, right? I'm going to journal at night. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then one day, no matter how I felt, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to just journal my phone. And I was just using it, my voice, my note, my phone. And then it went from, you know what? I go back to these notes and I may read it. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I felt that. If this anger, is this hurt? What is it? And I took it to another level and I started using my voice note. And then this is like my audio journal. So now when I'm journaling that way and I go back and play it 3 days later or 4 days later or whatever, I can hear the pain. I can hear the hurt. And that's me, okay, this hurt here. Let me go back and let me acknowledge this. Let me investigate why is this coming up. Or I can sit back and say, you know what, this was a good day. This is a day for gratitude. Man, yes, it was stressful, but I was able to go with the family, go to the beach and go spend time with the kids and run around. You guys know I got young kids. I'm always doing something with the kids. The days when like Herbie Mack is all busy, just spending that quality time with the family. I can journal that. I can listen to that. I can have that gratitude, that humble. Be humble for that moment of, okay, life is crazy, but in this craziness, I was able to have a moment with my wife, have a moment with my kids, or just vent. Because sometimes you want to vent and you just don't want no feedback or anything. So I love what you said, just doing it. Don't even think about it, just 1 minute, because that's what it started for me with journaling. But writing was 1 minute, then it, for the audio side, it went from 1 minute. The next thing you know, I'm doing 20 minutes of it, and I'm able to reflect. So thank you for sharing that. What about you, Susie?
What I do, believe it or not, is what we're doing right here. I take time out to connect with others so that I can share whatever's going on with them. And believe it or not, I tell this all the time to folks. I'm a late bloomer. I got a 13-year-old son. But I come to people like that and figure out, hey, how are other parents doing it? I come to Tony, although Tony doesn't realize, I bounce off of him and just say, hey, you know what's going on? And I listen to whatever his struggles might be. And then I've got a chance to go, I get a chance to exhale. Mm-hmm. And that's neat. We're laughing. We've been talking about suicide for the last over now. Okay, over now. But do you notice there's still that humor there because we're bouncing off of each other, we're relaxing with it. I know that you got stuff that you got to do. I know my brain, I got stuff to do. But just taking this time out and just going, we'll get through with it. And I like your thing with you saying, you know what? God's got this. All we got to do is be obedient.
He's a result guy. Let him worry about the results.
Yeah.
You just got to go through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to hear that. No, seriously, thank you for that. With that being said, can you please tell people how to find you and how to connect with you or your organizations?
I'm hoping that you, as my mentor, will put up the Suicide Prevention Training Institute.
Yes, it's going to be in the descriptions all over.
Okay, and the phone number?
If you want me to put the phone number out there.
Please put that phone number up there. Folks, we want you to call, honestly and truthfully. And I'm going to do something that I do not normally do. Folks, write it down if you're listening. This is my direct, personal cell phone number. All you got to do is call or text me. You can even text me and tell me that you're going to call. Okay? It's 831. Let me do it again. 831. I'm dyslexic, so I have to go slow. 915-8814. I hate it when I see them commercials that go, I have no idea what they said. I want you all to call. That's why I'm going slow. So on that note, please put the...
Oh, it's going to be there.
Great. And if you do that, folks, our next assist training, it is a 2-day training workshop. The time is from 8 to 4:30. I promise you on Saturday we'll get you out a little earlier. Held right here locally in Tampa, Florida. And I look forward to meeting you and seeing you. And if you tell them that you were listening to Herbie on his podcast, I will reduce $50 right off.
Okay.
How about that?
Heard it, right?
I love it.
Hey, look, you already got your discount. You got your discount. You just got to get more folks to show up. Okay.
And what about you, Tony?
Oh, yeah, so veterans counseling veterans. I tell you, one of the best ways, I'm a big time LinkedIn person. LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram, Vets Counseling Vets. You can find me on Facebook, Vets Counseling Vet Inc.
Oh, don't worry, I'm going to tag you all in this. I'm letting you know now, especially on LinkedIn. That's my favorite site. I love LinkedIn. So, okay.
Well, then please don't forget me on LinkedIn.
Oh, wait. No, you're going to be on the... I'm going to tag you too.
I love LinkedIn so much that somebody emailed me today or text me in Facebook, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know who you are. And she told me her name. I went on LinkedIn. Oh, man. All the attitude.
Yeah.
Hey, good. I'll tell you, LinkedIn is my seriously versus somebody like, you know. But I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Vets Counseling Vets. I got a YouTube channel. It's not called, I don't make enough money to make it, they call it Vet Council Vet.
Yeah, that's some crazy
Some
numbers.
crazy shit. It's all together, but I have and I do a lot of streamings. In fact, you'll see a lot of when it comes to mental health, military sexual trauma, and I have a whole month of people like, you don't know it, but people like TC on, and we talk about and you'll see it. It's coming in February, in the week of February. It's called Black Veterans Town Hall.
Nice.
There's going to be like 8 of us all together saying, this time we're doing a reunion, so I already talked about so the reunion.
Right.
That's going to be in February. We have 4 major events next year. April, we have our 3rd annual Military Sexual Trauma Conference.
Nice.
The one or two about the special memorial that those who lost veterans. That's 25th of May. We're gonna have a veterans and family. I always want to add the family always. Veterans and family suicide prevention summit in September, and then in November we're gonna have a veterans family mental wellness summit.
Nice.
So those events there. I'm not giving my direct number. I did that because I'm the guy called me from Australia.
Yeah.
We got finished talking. I got a little message from my thing, T-Mobile.
Yeah.
First of all, says that number, whatever it costs, it's like $66. I said, you know what? So much fun. No way. You never know sometimes.
Just
like,
email me.
Okay, and call me on WhatsApp.
That's right. That's my new thing. Without here.
What's that? I love it.
That's how you get a hold of me. And for those out there, not only are we about veterans, but the families who also, somebody out there who has a veteran who has challenges, from family cause problems too, no?
Yeah.
Family challenges. Even we talk about the first responders, whatever, or the first contact or gateway treatment.
Yes.
Most of the people who die by suicide, in civilian world, are those in bad relationships. We so focused on PTSD, and totally miss. I've seen like 3 or 4 of them just this week where somebody might go divorce or something and they kill themselves. So if you know somebody who's going through a divorce or a challenging time, call me. If you know somebody lost a job, call me. If you know somebody going through some substance abuse or misuse, whatever, call me. Doesn't matter. That one call can save a life. One call. Be paranoid. I don't care. Be paranoid.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
Safe than anything. Yeah. But that being said, thank you. Fellas, this was phenomenal. The insight that you both provided, the value, the laughs, much needed. With that being said, see you next time.
Great. Thanks.